hunting in the frozen silence. I went into the forest for a hunt late in the evening. A piercing winter wind was blowing, making me shiver beneath my heavy cloak. Snow lay thickly across the ground, and the trees stood like black silhouettes against the overcast sky. The forest seemed empty and lifeless, with only the occasional caw of crows breaking the deafening silence. My rifle hung over my shoulder, and a small bag of provisions was strapped to my back. I hoped to return with game that would provide food for several days. On nights like these, I always found a special pleasure in hunting. The quiet of the forest and the sense of solitude seemed to clear my mind. But this time, something felt wrong. The forest I had known since childhood felt alien. The shadows moved strangely, as if swayed not by the wind but by an unseen will. In the distance, I noticed a strange silhouette, too tall and narrow to be a tree. It stood motionless, as if watching me. I stopped. The forest held its breath. I wanted to step closer, but the crunch of my boots on the snow seemed far too loud, echoing unnaturally in the stillness. When I blinked, the silhouette was gone. I don't know why, but I decided to press on. At some point, I felt as though the forest itself was alive. The branches creaked, not from the wind, but as if they were whispering to one another. Every sound behind me made me turn, but there was nothing there. A couple of hours later, I finally spotted some tracks, large ones, possibly from a moose. The trail led to a small clearing where I could set up an ambush. I got into position, but soon realized that the place didn't bring its usual sense of safety. The clearing looked dead. Not a single sound, not even a rustle, as if all of nature had frozen. When I raised my eyes, a wave of icy terror washed over me. At the far end of the clearing, among the tree shadows, it stood. The creature was a grotesque fusion of man and spider. Its body loomed on thin, crooked limbs that resembled the legs of an insect more than those of a human. The upper torso looked like that of a naked human, but its skin was dark and grayish, as though crusted with decay. Its face is something I will never forget. It stared at me with large, bulging insect eyes, and yet there was an awful alien intelligence in them. Its mouth stretched into an unnatural, almost human grin, revealing rows of sharp teeth. The creature let out a low, rasping sound that echoed through the forest. I realized it had seen me. The wind suddenly died, as though the air itself froze in anticipation. My hand reached for my rifle. The creature took its first step. Each movement of its crooked limbs was sharp and abrupt. It advanced on me like a predator stalking its prey, every step accompanied by the creak of its joints. I raised my rifle and fired. The crack of the shot shattered the night, and it seemed the forest shuddered with it. The bullet struck the beast square in the chest, but instead of falling, it bent backward, like a spider recoiling from a blow. Black, viscous ichor began to drip from its chest, and as it hit the snow, a faint wisp of smoke rose. It hissed. I didn't wait for a second chance. I turned and bolted back through the forest, no longer caring about the path. My boots slipped on ice and snow, but fear drove me forward. The forest had become a maze. The black silhouettes of trees closed in around me, as if trying to trap me. Behind me came the sounds of pursuit, the clatter of its joints, its hissing breath tearing through the night air. I tripped and fell into the snow. My rifle slipped from my hands and I desperately crawled forward. Cold snow seeped into my sleeves and frost bit at my skin, but I couldn't stop. The sound of its legs grew louder behind me. When I dared to glance back, the creature was almost upon me. Its enormous eyes bore into me, and its mouth stretched wider, emitting a guttural sound that resembled laughter. And then I saw it. A decrepit hunting tower, my only chance. Scrambling to my feet, I sprinted toward it. My hands shook as I climbed the ladder, but adrenaline carried me up. Once at the top, I slammed the hatch shut and secured it with a rusty lock. The creature was right below. It circled the base of the tower, emitting low, vibrating sounds. I found an old lantern in the corner of the tower and lit it. Its dim light illuminated the surrounding forest, but didn't stop the monster. It began to climb the walls. I grabbed the first thing I could find, a heavy iron piece that might have once been part of some equipment. When its head appeared at the hatch, I swung with all my might. The sound of the impact was wet and loud. The creature fell back, letting out a shriek of rage. I didn't see what became of it after that. Minutes later, the forest grew quiet again. By morning, I climbed down from the tower. I barely remembered the way home. It felt as though the entire nightmare had been nothing more than a fever dream. But when I reached my house, I noticed strange tracks in the snow. Tracks of legs. Many legs. They led from the forest straight to my door.